Hey, it's Chris Bowling.
Hey, it's Chris Beyer.
We are CB Squared.
Howdy again.
Howdy again. We're both wearing the same shirts, so it's
Love it.
week after week, right?
It's what
All
we
right.
do.
So what we've done so far through this series is kind of take you through a journey. And, that journey is what can a prospective employer experience when they engage CB Squared and Assured Partners.
Yes.
And, that journey really started with an intro call, and then it really dove deep into what is a discovery meeting. And then finally, last week, we showed you what a blueprint is. So, Chris, does everyone have to, do we force everyone on this same journey?
No. And I think that's the other thing. It's not about us. It's about what's right for that employer. We have been hired because we have done good work and an employer already knows what we can do and has made the decision that we need CB Squared to help us here. And then we set out the strategy. We've also had situations where we have talked through blueprint as the reason to be hired. And once we're hired, we go through it. But often it's that employer that says, I am happy with what's going on. My consultant is great. We love them. But they don't know what happy could mean. They don't know what it means to be compared to high performance.
Right.
And that's usually when we go through that blueprint. It's a proof of concept that you and I know them and understand them and can dig into things that maybe they're not being asked by a traditional broker. And that's when blueprint makes sense. But you and I both have multiple experiences where that employer is just tired of what's always been done and they're ready to make a change and they're ready to engage and then figure out what that strategy looks like. And we're open to that too.
Yes.
We finished blueprints before and, we've had employers, say this is a lot of information for us to look at and think through. And it is. And,
Yes.
but often, we've had that employer say, you know what, we can't break that relationship with our current advisor.
That's right.
But we want to work with you. Or, you know what, we just can't take this on right now, but here's when we can. So what does the timeline do when we have that at the end of that blueprint, or a timeline that we established before blueprint,
Right.
do to help that employer confidently know what they're in for? Because change is hard.
That's why I like the timeline. And, again, it's not you and I creating the timeline. It's really, a example of a timeline.
Yes.
But then it's really help us understand what is the most critical part of this today. And then we build that timeline off of that. But, like you said, I have always thought one of the biggest fears of change is, what are you going to do to my HR department? What am I going to have to do as a CFO? Because, at the end of the day, we are running a business, and that is the most important part. We have to manage our employees. We want to be good stewards of our money. And, embarking in this major change of insurance and consultants and everything else, that's usually the first roadblock. And you and I would both say, we're not here to change anything. What we want to do is, possibly take what you have today and show you a way to improve it.
Yeah.
But I like the timeline because it helps us understand what's important. But I think what's even more important is it's all about accountability.
Right.
And that's where I believe our industry has failed the majority of the clients out there. It's that one renewal meeting and we spreadsheet it and we do our open enrollment meetings and it's goodbye to next year.
Or we bring in the flashy team in the presentation and tell you about all the things we can do for you and how good it's going to be. And then nothing happens. And you just go back to being a broker that does a renewal and you answer questions when they come in, and that doesn't change.
No, it is.
Times we run into that. Execution is the key.
Yes.
Whether it's blueprint or it's blueprint after we're hired, or
Right.
It's how do we see through across the course of the year that we're making constant improvement and we're earning that right to continue to bring advice and to coach that employer.
Right. We have to be accountable based on that timeline. If we create the timeline and we don't do anything for 12 months, you should fire us. Is that we have not done exactly what we have said that we are going to do. Now, that being said, we understand that businesses might have a big contract coming, but again, we're always updating that timeline. This timeline is created for you. It's not for us. It's when do we want to start working towards moving you to higher performing? And here's a timeline that's going to keep us accountable to do so.
No, and it's, you and I both work so well with our team with that sort of timeline, because we have that team behind us that's really the experts in those different areas beyond our knowledge of it. So when we say it's this aspect of the timeline that we want to do in third quarter of next year, we know that we have that team to help remind us, to remind the client, to make sure that we see that through. Because it's not just you and I. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got so many people behind us that are very skilled in what they do, that that helps the employer know that it's not just us showing up and disappearing,
right?
But it's us showing up and being consistent with them to continue to bring ideas, and then know we've got a team to execute, because there are people that are much better at certain areas of that benefit strategy than you and I are at actually seeing it through with the technicals, and we rely heavily on them.
We do. So, really to sum this up is there is no one way to really work with CB Squared.
Yeah.
We've been hired on a project basis. Hey, can you just do this for us? Absolutely. Right. We've been hired without a client firing their broker.
Yeah.
And then we have a full-blown relationship where, yes, they're done with who they have worked with, even though, that they've had a good experience, but they want something new, something different. And we've been hired in that way. So there's no one right way to hire CB Squared.
Chris, if I think back to some of our first videos that we put out early in 2021, when we were talking about you and I wanting to coach, you and I having our athletic background, you and I always wanting to improve, we have become so much more than that salesman of insurance that we were when we started our careers right after college or in college, to where this is really how we're doing our best work. And hopefully there are more employers that look to this and say there is a better way, and maybe that's with CB Squared, and we can have an opportunity to continue to impact those employers and move them to high performance like we've been doing for our clients. This is the fun part of it, is just really being able to watch that marked improvement. So,
yes, well said.
We appreciate you tuning into the Client Journey series, and thanks for listening to CB Squared. Have a good one. Thanks so much.
Goodbye.